Okay, everybody, welcome to the Black Belt Husband podcast. Super excited to chat with you guys today. And I want to have a conversation about this idea of becoming the prize. Becoming the prize. So the reason this conversation is important, I've been thinking a lot about this lately, is because when I talk to guys about the marriage work that we do and becoming, great husbands, trophy husbands, a lot of guys are consumed with getting something. Okay, so they want more respect. They want more sex. They want to have these things in the relationship, and that's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea to have those things. But here's the problem. The problem is they don't understand that in order to get those things, they have to become somebody different. And so I want to talk about the mindset shift that we need to have as great husbands. And the shift is around, instead of thinking about what can I get from the relationship, we want to ask a better question of, who do I need to become inside the relationship so those things that I want just automatically are attracted to me like magnets? So instead of trying to chase and get the thing that you want, we become the thing that we need to become, or we become the person of who we need to become. And so those things are automatically drawn to us easily, quickly, and happily. And that's how we become the prize. That's what this episode is going to be about. Now, somebody might hear this concept of becoming the prize, and then they're thinking, oh, well, doesn't that sound, I don't know, doesn't that sound arrogant? Doesn't that sound narcissistic? Like, after all, who do you think you are? You're becoming the prize. Well, we're not really thinking about it that way. Okay. We're talking about, how do you become the kind of person, how do you become so attractive to your wife where your wife thinks that you're the prize? Your wife thinks like, oh my gosh, I hit the lottery by being in a relationship with my husband. And so the energy of being the prize is from her to you. It's not so much that you think you're the prize, although it's also okay to get to a place inside your relationship where you recognize, I am a really, really, really great husband. Now, a lot of guys, they think they are a great husband, and unfortunately they're not. But when you really are a great husband, it's okay to stand on that hill and say, you know what? I am a really great husband, and my wife actually is very blessed to be in a relationship with me. I think that way about myself, and that is not coming from a place of arrogance. It's just coming from a place of extreme self-confidence because of the growth and the work and the relationship that my wife and I have created together. And so it's not delusional. And of course, I'm always grounded with a sense of humility. I'm always thinking about how I can be better. I'm always thinking about how I can be up-level our relationship. But I'm not afraid to say that I am a really, really great husband. And I want you also to be able to say that, but I want you to be able to say that and stand in the confidence and the truth about what that really is and what is required of you in order to be able to say that and actually have it mean something. So like I alluded to in the very beginning of this podcast, we're trying to break down the difference of trying to get something versus becoming something, okay? And the way I like to say it is that average guys chase outcomes, but elite guys chase identity. Okay, I just want to say that again. Average guys chase outcomes, but elite guys chase identities. And the reason that's such an important distinction is because if you are chasing outcomes, but the foundation of who you are is a little bit wobbly, or the identity of who you are is not where it needs to be, even if you're able to achieve some of those outcomes, they're not going to be long lasting. The achievement of some of those outcomes is going to be, it's not going to be long lasting. And the only way to have the outcomes that you want in your relationship, more joy, more peace, a better sex life, less conflict, all of those things that really matter to you, more respect, all of those things that you want, all those outcomes that you want, if those outcomes are not layered on top of a different identity, well, you might be able to achieve those for a little bit, for a moment of time. We see that a lot with guys that we work with. They're able to have these little moments where they're able to get the outcome, but then they lose it. And the reason that they lose it is because they didn't change the main thing. And changing the main thing is about changing who you are. It's about changing your identity and how you see yourself, how you see who you are and how you show up in the world. So I just want to reinforce that point. Average guys chase outcomes. And if you are an elite guy listening to this, I want you to think about it totally different. I want you to think about chasing your identity, uprooting, overhauling, tweaking your identity. Because once you start making these really big identity shifts, the outcomes that you want, that's just a natural consequence, and it's a natural byproduct of the identity shift. Okay, so what is some of these identity shifts that make elite men so attractive? What are some of these identity shifts that really make elite guys so attractive? So if you think about the different types of guys in the world, and we think about all the different outcomes that guys chase, and we connect that to attraction, we can see where it kind of starts to break down. So let me give you some examples. So we all know people in our life, guys that are, wildly financially successful, but they are massively unattractive. I can introduce you to dozens of those guys. I know them personally. They have all the money in the world. They live in the biggest and the best houses in the world. They live in the best locations. They have private planes. And their wives don't want anything to do with them. Okay, so having financial success is not by itself a metric for attraction. I can show you guys that are just jacked, ripped bodies, okay? Sub 5% body fat. On the outside, the aesthetic, by our kind of cultural standards, people would say that person is attractive, but I can introduce you also to dozens of those guys where their wives also want nothing to do with them. Okay, so physical fitness by itself is not necessarily a part of attraction, although it can be, and just like money can be, by itself, it's not. Or I can show you guys that are just big dogs in the world, leaders, captains of industry, running big companies. Everybody's following them, okay? And then when they get home, their wife is not saying, "Oh my gosh, I just can't wait to do you tonight." The wife is not saying that. The wife wants nothing to do with that guy. Okay, so we can look at examples, and these are outcome examples. And these are what guys typically chase. They chase money, and then they chase the body, and they chase influence and leadership. And they think by having those things, then their wives are going to be attracted to them. But if that's the only thing that you're focusing on, and you're not focusing on the identity shift, your wife will not be attracted to you. And that's going to be a huge letdown. And a lot of guys that we work with, they get stuck in that trap because they have all of these outcomes and they're confused because they're kind of like saying, well, why isn't my wife attracted to me? Why am I really not the prize? I thought I was the prize, but I'm clearly not the prize. My wife wants nothing to do with me. And the answer to that is because you haven't made the identity shift that you need to make. It always comes down to identity. And what is the identity that we're talking about? Well, we're talking about having an identity of somebody that is interested in growth, that is interested in growing. And we're going to do a whole nother podcast topic we're going to do a whole nother podcast episode on why growth is so important. But let me just share a couple things with you. Let me say it this way, the most attractive elite men in the world are obsessed with growth. The most attractive elite men in the world are obsessed with growth. So if you have money and you have the body and you have leadership influence, but you're not obsessed with growth, you will never be attractive to the right woman that you want to be attractive to. Now, why is that? Human beings are naturally drawn to people that are always evolving and always growing. It's the number one most attractive quality in men is for men to be growing. Now, why is that? Think about a garden for a second. If you walk into a garden and all the flowers are dying and it's tumbleweeds and it's dirt and it's full of weeds, you're not going to feel like, I want to really be in that garden. I don't really want to spend time in that garden. The energy in that garden is energy of decay. And to contrast that, imagine walking into a garden where there's fruit trees and there's beautiful flowers and it's all sorts of growth and miracles happening. The energy inside of that garden is an energy of vitality. It's an energy of life. And we want to spend time inside that garden. Human beings are naturally drawn towards the energy of growth. And the reason you're not a trophy husband, the reason that you're not the prize that you want to be inside your relationship is because you have not made a dedication to growth. Inside of your garden, it's weeds, it's tumbleweeds, it's death, it's decay, it's rotten fruit. Now, I know that might be hard to hear because you might be thinking, well, like, what about all this? And I would say, well, all that stuff is actually great. The stuff that you've built, the things that you've done, it's all great. But you're just missing a really important ingredient. And it happens to be the most important ingredient of all of it. And it's the most important ingredient of all of it because it sets the stage, it sets the foundation for everything else to be layered on top of that. And when you layer it on top of the foundation of growth, you become massively attractive. That's how you really become the prize. So a question that you can ask yourself, if you're listening to this right now, you could always ask yourself a very simple question. Is your wife married to a man who is growing, or is your wife married to a man who has settled, or even worse, thinks that he doesn't even need to grow? Okay. That's the question I want to ask. I want you to ask yourself, because it's the garden analogy exists for all of us. Is she walking into a garden of vitality, or is she walking into a garden of decay? Nobody wants to spend time in the garden of decay. Everybody wants to spend time in the garden of vitality. The way that we create the garden of vitality is we make a concerted effort towards growth. Remember, I said in the very beginning, elite men are obsessed with growing. Elite men are obsessed with growing. So if you consider yourself an elite man, which I hope you do listening to this, and you want to have an elite marriage, you have to be obsessed with growing. Okay, and so this takes us to the mistakes that guys make inside of their marriage that keeps them from being perceived as the prize. I want all of you guys listening to this, I want you to be the prize in your life. But there's some things that you have to do in order to become the prize, okay? And so I've alluded to this a little bit already, but I just want to say a couple more things about it to emphasize the point. So when it comes to the mistakes that guys make about becoming the prize and the identity shift as it relates to someone who's obsessed with growing, it's kind of like this. So this is what we hear a lot inside Black Belt Husband. We hear guys say, what do they say? They say, I expect my wife to respect me. I expect my wife to respect me. My wife is disrespectful. I expect her to respect me. And the hardest thing in the world is for me to tell that guy that he is not worthy of respect. Now, when I say that, I want you to know that there's different layers of respect, okay? So like in the eyes of God, of course, we are all infinitely valuable human beings and we have infinite respect. But in the real world, with real people and real outcomes and different values, respect is something that is earned. And if you feel like you are entitled to respect from your wife, you are asking the wrong question. Because the better question is, who do I need to become to be the kind of guy that respect just naturally flows to me? Who do I need to become to be the kind of guy that respect naturally flows to me? Instead of being the kind of guy that's feeling entitled and demanding respect, maybe this is the call to you to say, okay, I need to look in the mirror and I need to ask myself some really hard questions. How is it that I'm showing up? How is it that I've stopped leading myself? How is it that I've stopped leading my marriage where I haven't earned my wife's respect? And we can apply this to your sex life. It's the same thing. It's like guys get so frustrated because their wives don't want to sleep with them. And of course, I would be very frustrated too. You should be frustrated. But what happens in the frustration is that guys naturally ask the wrong question. They say, how can I get my wife to have sex with me? Or what's wrong with her? Why she doesn't want to have sex with me? And the better question is, who do I need to become so my wife is massively attracted to me physically and she wants to have sex with me more than I want to have sex with her? Who do I need to become to be that guy? So we see this in respect and admiration, and we see this in sex and how guys think about sex, and we also see this in an area of where, we see it in guys, trying to change their wife. My wife needs to be this way, or my wife needs to be that way, or my wife should be this way or that way. Instead of asking a better question of, who do I need to become to influence my wife in such a way that serves me better? Who do I need to become? I was having a conversation with a guy yesterday about some of this stuff, and he said, every time I drive home, I'm 100 yards from the house and I'm pulling down our street and I'm getting ready to pull into the driveway, and I can just feel my blood pressure rise. And I know that when I walk through that door, I have to get ready for a fight because it's going to be tense. It's going to be conflict. And my wife is always in a bad mood. And so we were having this conversation. And so he was trying to justify to me, why he reacted the way he reacted. So I explained to him that part of the black belt husband framework, one of the aspects is what we call leading the temperature. Okay. And so what I needed to explain to him is that his wife's grumpiness, his wife's bad mood, and his reaction to it was something that he had total influence over. And he couldn't see that in the moment. He couldn't see that. And I explained to him, I said, if I walk through the door, and I'm saying this not because I'm better than you, but because I've learned a lot about how to become the prize. I know what it means to be an elite husband. I know what it means to create a relationship that feels impossible. So when I walk home and I walk through the door and my wife is in a bad mood, I know how to interact with her in maybe even less than 5 minutes, and it will completely shift her mood. It completely changes the whole energy in the house. So most guys walk through the front door, their wife's in a bad mood, and then it triggers them and they're in a bad mood and they respond and they're defensive and the wife's in a worse mood. And now they don't want to talk to each other for the rest of the night. That's not what we do. We do something different. And the guys that we teach inside Black Belt all do something different too. We walk through the front door and the wife is in a bad mood and we know how to change it. We know how to change it. And so we know how to change the energy. This is all about, this is an identity shift. And the way that we have the way that we've been able to cultivate that kind of an interaction with our spouses is because we've become obsessed with growing. We've become obsessed with not getting triggered if my wife is in a bad mood. I don't care if my wife is in a bad mood. Good for her. I'm going to help her with her own bad mood by becoming a certain way that totally changes all of the energy inside of our house. Okay, so this is where it goes back to self-leadership. It goes back to taking responsibility, all the things that we talk about on this podcast. And that's how you become a prize. But you cannot get to that place. You can't get to the place where we don't get triggered anymore. If my wife is in a bad mood, I do not get triggered. I'm like, okay, cool, high five, no worries. But you cannot get to that place unless you've made a concerted effort and a borderline obsession with wanting to grow. Remember, average guys want to chase outcomes, okay? And elite husbands, elite men are only interested in changing their identity. They want to change who they are, so the way that they move through the world changes everything. Instead of going through the world trying to get what I want, I move through the world by looking inward and asking a better question. And the question is, who do I need to become? Okay, so let's land the plane. And the thing that I want to say at the end of this episode is that your marriage, all of our marriages at all times, is giving us feedback. And that's the cool thing about relationships, is that relationships are just a natural mirror, okay? And the relationship is holding up a mirror for us to look in and to be able to say, okay, what part of this is me? What do I need to do different? Who do I need to become to create the kind of relationship that I say that I really want? And when we see relationships as a mirror, and we have enough humility to look in the mirror and say, oh my gosh, this is where I'm totally dropping the ball. This is where I'm failing. Then we are setting the stage for us to create the relationship that we want and ultimately get all those beautiful outcomes. But first we have to think about, who do we need to become in order to get those outcomes? So if you're listening to this, there's a couple things I just want you to know, okay? If you're listening to this podcast, one thing I know about you is you're a good guy, because you care enough to listen to this podcast. You care enough about how to get better, okay? So awesome. You're halfway there. Now you have to go a little bit deeper and you have to say, okay, where are my deficits? Where are my shortcomings? Who am I today that isn't getting the results that I want? And who do I need to become as a man in order to get the results that I want? Who do I need to become? And when we start asking that question, it automatically and always catapults us into an area of our life, or several areas of our life, where we have the opportunity to really go inward and grow. And this is what we teach inside Black Belt Husband. Okay, we teach guys how they can look inward, how they can stop asking the wrong question about what do I get, and start asking the better question of who do I need to become. And if you want to learn more about how to do that, you can find us at blackbelthusband.com, or you can DM me on Instagram. I'd love to explain our process to you and show you how we can help you become the prize, become the trophy husband, because you deserve that. Cheers.